My daughter mocked my old clothes, then found out I designed the brand she wore. The call came through during lunch service on a Tuesday, the kind of mild autumn day when the light through the shop windows turned every hanging garment into something worth photographing. I was finishing a hem on a client's trousers when my phone buzzed against the counter. The number looked unfamiliar, but the area code belonged to the city where my daughter worked. I let it ring. The needle in my hand required attention, and whoever needed to speak with me could wait until the stitch line sat perfectly straight. When I finally returned the call, a young man with an assistant's voice asked if I was available for a video interview the following week. He mentioned a fashion documentary, archive footage, and original design sketches. He used the word legacy 3 times in under a minute. I told him I would need to check my calendar, though I knew it held only client fittings, and the standing chess game I played every Thursday evening with the pharmacist 2 doors down. I asked what prompted the inquiry. He paused, then said a designer I'd never heard of had credited me during a recent industry panel. Apparently, my name still carried weight in circles I'd left decades ago. After we hung up, I stood at the window and watched people pass on the sidewalk outside. Most wore clothes that fit poorly, cheap seams that would separate within a season, hems that dragged, shoulders that bunched. I'd built a quiet business fixing those mistakes, and I'd never once regretted walking away from the machinery that produced them. That evening, I tried calling my daughter to tell her about the interview request. She didn't answer. She rarely did anymore, unless she needed something. I should explain how we arrived at this distance. It wasn't sudden. It was the slow kind of drift that families mistake for natural until the gap becomes too wide to shout across. Claire had always been bright, sharp-eyed and quick-tongued, with her mother's cheekbones and my tendency to notice details others missed. After her mother passed, I raised her alone in the apartment above the shop. She grew up surrounded by fabric bolts and pattern paper, by the hiss of steam irons and the rhythmic clatter of the sewing machine I kept running late into the night. She tolerated it then. She'd do her homework at the cutting table, legs swinging while I worked. Sometimes she'd hand me pins or hold a tape measure taut while I marked a client's measurements. But as she got older, the shop became something she endured rather than inhabited. By high school, she spent her time elsewhere. By college, she'd made it clear she wanted a life that looked nothing like mine. I didn't fight her on it. Children are meant to grow into their own shape. I paid for her education without complaint. I attended her graduation and listened as she described her new job in marketing for a fashion brand I'd never heard of. She spoke, quickly, her hands moving in sharp gestures, and I understood she was trying to impress me with the speed and scale of her new world. What I noticed most was her discomfort. She kept glancing at my suit, an old gray wool piece I'd made 30 years earlier. It still fit perfectly because I'd designed it to last. But to her, it was evidence of everything she was trying to leave behind. The distance grew wider after that. She called on holidays and sent brief texts on my birthday. When she did visit, she rarely stayed long. She'd glance around the shop with barely concealed impatience, as though the whole enterprise embarrassed her. 3 months before the documentary call, she'd come by unannounced. I was adjusting a jacket for a regular client, an accountant who appreciated good tailoring. Claire arrived wearing something expensive and aggressively trendy, all sharp angles and asymmetrical cuts. She waited by the door, arms crossed, until I finished. When the client left, she turned to me with a look I recognized. It was the expression she used to wear as a teenager when she wanted to pick a fight, but hadn't yet decided on the target. "Dad," she said, "you really need to update your wardrobe." I glanced down at my vest and trousers. Both were pieces I'd made years ago, maintained carefully, repaired when necessary. They fit well and served their purpose. These work fine, I said. She shook her head. They make you look like you're stuck in the past. It's embarrassing. I didn't respond immediately. I've learned that silence often reveals more than argument. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable now, and gestured at the racks of garments waiting for pickup. This whole place, she continued, it's so outdated. No one gets their clothes tailored anymore, they just buy new ones. Some people do, I said, enough to keep me busy. But it's not a real business, Dad. It's a hobby. You're just patching up old things instead of creating anything new. I felt the sting of that, though I kept my face neutral. Creating had once been the center of my life. Before the shop, before Claire, I'd worked for one of the largest fashion houses in the country. I'd spent 15-hour days sketching and draping and arguing with manufacturers over thread count and seam allowances. I'd designed collections that appeared in magazines and on runways. My name had been printed in small type at the bottom of glossy spreads. But Claire didn't know that. I'd never told her. After her mother died, I'd walked away from that world because it demanded more than I could give while raising a daughter alone. I'd opened the shop in a neighborhood where rent was manageable and clients were loyal. I'd traded visibility for stability, and I'd never second-guessed the choice. Still, hearing her dismiss it as a hobby landed harder than I expected. She left soon after, offering a vague excuse about meeting friends. I watched her go, then returned to my work. The jacket on the form needed its collar reset. I focused on that, on the small, precise movements that turned fabric into something that fit correctly. I didn't call her to argue. I didn't call her at all. Some conversations need distance before they're worth having. The documentary interview was scheduled for the following Thursday. The crew arrived in the late morning, 3 people with equipment cases and light stands. The young man who'd called me introduced himself as Ben, the assistant producer. He seemed nervous, checking his phone repeatedly and adjusting the camera angles with a meticulousness I recognized. They wanted to film in the shop, he explained. The setting would add authenticity. I agreed and moved the client work off the main table. While they set up, I made tea. The director, a woman in her 40s with gray streaking her dark hair, asked questions about my design background. She seemed genuinely interested in the details, the technical side of pattern making and construction. When the camera started rolling, she asked me to describe my early work. I explained how I'd started as a junior assistant at a mid-tier label, learning to translate sketches into garments that could be manufactured at scale. I described the satisfaction of seeing a design executed properly, of watching a model walk in something I'd imagined weeks earlier. Then she asked why I'd left. I paused, considering how much to say. The camera's red light blinked steadily. I decided on the simplest version. My wife passed away unexpectedly, I said. I had a young daughter. The fashion industry doesn't accommodate that kind of responsibility well, so I made a different choice. The director nodded, her expression soft. Do you regret it? No, I said. I chose my daughter over a career. That's not something worth regretting. But even as I said it, I wondered if Claire would see it the same way. The interview lasted 2 hours. They filmed the shop, the tools on my workbench, my hands marking fabric. Before they left, Ben mentioned the designer who'd credited me. Her name was Victoria Lang, and she'd apparently built her brand on the aesthetic principles I'd helped establish decades earlier. She called you a foundational influence, Ben said. Said you taught her what real craftsmanship looked like. I didn't remember anyone named Victoria Lang, but that wasn't surprising. I'd worked with dozens of assistants and interns during my years at the fashion house. Most of them had moved on to other labels or started their own lines. It pleased me to know some of them remembered the lessons. After they packed up and left, I returned to work. A client had dropped off a coat that needed the lining replaced. I laid it flat on the table and began removing the old stitches, working slowly to avoid damaging the shell fabric. My phone rang again that evening. This time it was Claire. "Dad," she said. Her voice carried a strange tension. "I need to ask you something." "Go ahead." "Did you used to work in fashion? Like actual fashion design?" I set down the seam ripper. "Yes, a long time ago." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You never asked," I said. "And it didn't seem relevant. That part of my life ended before you were old enough to remember." She was quiet for a long moment. I heard background noise, voices, and music. She was calling from somewhere public. "Victoria Lang posted something," she said finally, "about a documentary she's in. She mentioned you by name, said you were one of her early mentors." "Someone called me for an interview," I said. "They filmed it today." "Jesus, Dad." Her voice tightened. "Do you know who she is? She's one of the biggest names in contemporary fashion. Her brand is worth millions. I've been following her work for years." "I'm glad she's done well," I said. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" "What else would you like me to say?" She made a frustrated sound. "You let me think you were just some neighborhood tailor? You let me lecture you about being outdated when you were actually part of the industry I work in. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" I leaned back in my chair, watching the evening light fade against the shop windows. "I didn't let you think anything, Claire. You made assumptions. I never corrected them because I didn't think they mattered." "Of course they matter. Why?" The question stopped her. I heard her breathing, trying to formulate an answer. "Because," she said finally, "I've been treating you like you don't understand my world, and the whole time you had more experience in it than I ever will." "That doesn't change who I am now," I said, "or who you thought I was." She didn't respond. After a moment, I heard the call disconnect. I sat there for a while, phone in hand, thinking about the ways we reveal ourselves to the people we love. I'd chosen not to burden Claire with my past because I wanted her to build her own identity, free from the shadow of mine. But perhaps I'd miscalculated. Perhaps she'd needed to know where she came from in order to understand where she was going. The documentary aired 6 weeks later. Ben sent me a link to the streaming platform where it premiered. I watched it alone in the apartment above the shop, sitting in the armchair I'd owned since Claire was a toddler. The film opened with footage of contemporary runways, models moving in elegant formation. Then it cut to archival images from the 80s and 90s, an era when fashion had been louder and less restrained. My interview appeared early, intercut with shots of the shop and close-ups of my hands working fabric. I barely recognized the person on screen. The camera made me look older than I felt, my voice slower and more deliberate than it sounded in my own head. But the words were mine, and they held together logically. The segment featuring Victoria Lang came midway through. She was a striking woman in her 50s, speaking with the kind of confidence that comes from sustained success. When the interviewer asked about her influences, she didn't hesitate. "There was a designer I worked with early on," she said. "His name was Thomas Brennan. He wasn't famous, at least not in the way we use that word now. But he understood something fundamental about clothing that most people miss. He believed every garment should honor the person wearing it, not overshadow them, not transform them into something they're not. Just honor them." The screen cut to one of my old sketches, a design I'd drawn for a collection that never got produced. Seeing it again after so many years felt strange, like encountering a younger version of myself in a mirror. Victoria continued. "Thomas taught me that fashion isn't about trends or shock value. It's about making people feel like the best version of themselves. That philosophy shaped everything I've built, and I owe him for that. The documentary moved on to other designers and other eras, but I sat there replaying her words. I thought about Claire, about the dismissive way she'd looked at my clothes and my shop. I thought about the distance we'd let grow between us. My phone rang. It was Claire. "I just watched it," she said. Her voice was quiet, stripped of the sharp edges she usually carried. "What did you think?" "I think I owe you an apology." I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to hear what she'd say next. "I've been so focused on proving I belong in this industry," she continued. "I've been working for brands that treat fashion like disposable content. Fast turnarounds, cheap materials, everything designed to be replaced in 6 months. And I convinced myself that was normal, that it was what success looked like." She paused. I heard her take a breath. "But watching you in that documentary, hearing Victoria talk about your work, I realized I've been chasing the wrong thing. You weren't stuck in the past, Dad. You were holding on to something real while everyone else moved towards something hollow." "You're being hard on yourself," I said. "No, I'm being honest. I mocked you for running a small shop, for making clothes that last. I acted like you were the one who didn't understand. But you understood better than anyone." I stood and walked to the window. The street below was quiet, a few pedestrians passing under the streetlights. "Claire," I said, "you don't need to apologize for building your own path. I never wanted you to follow mine. I wanted you to find what mattered to you." "But I was cruel," she said. "I said things I shouldn't have, about your clothes, about the shop. I made you feel small." "You made me feel old," I corrected. "Which I am. But that's not the same as being wrong." She laughed, a soft sound tinged with regret. "I don't know how you're not angrier with me." "Because I remember being young," I said. "I remember thinking I had to reject everything my parents valued in order to become my own person. It's a common mistake. Most of us grow out of it." "When did you grow? Out of it?" "Around the time your mother got sick," I said. "I realized the things I'd dismissed as old-fashioned were actually the things that held steady when everything else fell apart." We were quiet for a moment. Then Claire said, "Can I come visit this weekend?" "Actually visit, not just stop by." "Of course." "And maybe you could show me some of your old work? The pieces you designed before you opened the shop?" I glanced at the closet where I kept my old portfolios, sketchbooks and fabric swatches from collections that had never seen production. "I'd like that," I said. After we hung up, I made tea and sat at the cutting table. There was a jacket waiting for alterations, but I left it for tomorrow. Instead, I pulled out one of the old sketchbooks and paged through designs I'd created 30 years earlier. Some of them looked dated now, too influenced by the trends of their era. But others still held something worth preserving. Clean lines, thoughtful construction, a respect for the body that would eventually wear them. I thought about what Victoria had said in the documentary, about honoring the person wearing the garment. It struck me that the same principle applied to relationships. You couldn't force someone into a shape they didn't choose. You could only offer support and hope they found their way to something that fit. Claire arrived on Saturday morning carrying coffee and a bag of pastries from the bakery 3 blocks over. She looked different, less armored. She'd dressed simply, jeans and a sweater, no aggressive styling. When she hugged me, she held on longer than usual. We spent the morning going through my old portfolios. I explained the thinking behind each design, the technical challenges, the compromises I'd made with manufacturers. Claire asked questions, real ones, her attention focused in a way I hadn't seen since she was a child. "This one," she said, pointing to a coat I'd designed for a winter collection. "This is beautiful. Why didn't it get made?" "Budget constraints," I said. The fabric I wanted was too expensive for mass production. I could have simplified it, but that would have defeated the purpose. She studied the sketch. Do you still have the pattern? Probably, somewhere in the storage room. Could you make it now? Just one, I mean, for yourself. I considered the question. The coat would require significant time and materials, but looking at it through Claire's eyes, I felt a pull toward the project I hadn't experienced in years. I could, I said. It would take a few weeks. I think you should, she said. I'd like to see you wear something you actually designed instead of just repairing other people's clothes. We moved to the shop floor after that. I showed her the current projects, explaining the small adjustments that made cheap garments wearable. She handled the fabrics carefully, asking about thread weight and seam finishing. At one point, she picked up one of my old suits from the rack where I kept personal items. This is the one I insulted, isn't it? She said. One of them. She ran her hand along the lapel, feeling the construction. It's actually perfect, isn't it? The fit, the fabric, the way it's held up. I was too ignorant to see it. You saw what you expected to see, I said. We all do that. She hung the suit back carefully. I talked to my boss this week, told her I wanted to shift toward more sustainable projects, brands that focus on quality instead of volume. How did she respond? She said it's not profitable. Claire smiled, but there was steel underneath. So I've started looking at other companies, smaller ones, places that might actually care about the work. That's a risk, I said. I know, but staying where I am feels like lying, and I'm tired of lying. We had lunch in the apartment, simple sandwiches eaten at the kitchen table where Claire had done her homework years ago. She told me about her job, about the pressure to move fast and the contempt her colleagues had for anything that didn't generate immediate engagement online. It's exhausting, she said. Everyone's performing all the time. No one talks about craft or longevity, just metrics and visibility. That's one version of the industry, I said. It's not the only one, but it's the dominant one. For now, things change. People get tired of hollow work. They come back to what lasts. She looked at me across the table. Is that what you did? Came back to what lasts? I never left, I said. I just moved it somewhere quieter. Before Claire left that evening, she asked if she could take one of my old sketchbooks. She wanted to study the designs, she said. See if any of the principles could apply to her own thinking. I gave her the one with the coat design. Keep it as long as you need, I said. She hugged me again at the door. Thank you, Dad, for not being angry, for letting me figure things out. There's nothing to thank me for, I said. You're doing the work. I'm just here. Over the following weeks, Claire called more frequently. She'd found a new position at a smaller brand focused on limited production runs and transparent supply chains. The pay was less, but the work felt meaningful. She sent me photos of the office, of design meetings, of fabric samples she was considering. I started working on the coat from the old sketch. The pattern pieces came back to me easily, muscle memory from decades of similar work. I sourced the fabric from a supplier I'd used years ago, a wool blend that draped exactly as I'd envisioned. The construction took longer than I'd estimated. I worked in the evenings after closing the shop, cutting and basting and fitting the pieces on my dress form. Each session reminded me why I'd loved design work. The satisfaction of seeing an idea become tangible. The problem-solving required when reality didn't match the sketch. Claire visited twice during the process. She watched me work, asked questions about technique, took notes on her phone. Once, she asked if I'd consider teaching her some basic pattern making. It would take time, I said. Pattern work is precise. You can't rush it. I have time, she said, if you're willing to teach me. So we began. One evening a week, Claire came to the shop, and I walked her through the fundamentals. How to take accurate measurements, how to draft a basic bodice, how to adjust for different body types. She struggled at first. Her hands weren't used to the fine motor control required, and she grew frustrated when her lines didn't match mine. But she kept coming back. She practiced between sessions and asked increasingly sophisticated questions. I realized, watching her bent over the cutting table, that this was something I should have offered years ago. Not the technical instruction necessarily, but the connection it represented, the sharing of knowledge, the trust implicit in teaching someone your craft. The coat was finished 3 months after I'd started it. I tried it on in front of the shop mirror, adjusting the collar and checking the drape. It fit exactly as I'd intended, the sleeves falling at the precise point on my wrists, the shoulders sitting square. Claire arrived while I was still wearing it. She stopped in the doorway, staring. "That's incredible," she said. "You look like you stepped out of one of those old-fashioned photographs, but better, more real." I turned, checking the back view. "It's what I hoped for." "You should wear it more often. Out in public, I mean. Let people see what actual craftsmanship looks like." I smiled. "I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone." "I know," she said, "but maybe you should anyway." The documentary gained traction over the following months. It appeared on year-end lists, got discussed in industry podcasts, prompted articles about forgotten designers, and the value of slow fashion. Ben called to tell me they were releasing an extended version with additional interviews. "Would you be willing to talk more about your current work?" he asked. "People are interested in the shop, in what you're doing now." I agreed, and they filmed a follow-up segment. This time, Claire was there. She'd asked if she could watch, and I said yes. She stood behind the camera crew, silent but present. When Ben asked if I had any regrets about leaving the mainstream industry, I thought carefully before answering. "I regret that I couldn't do both," I said. "Be a present father and maintain that career. But I don't regret the choice I made. My daughter needed me more than the fashion world did." Claire's expression shifted. I saw her eyes brighten, and she looked away quickly. After the crew left, she helped me clean up. We worked in comfortable silence, rearranging furniture and putting tools back in their proper places. When we finished, she sat on the cutting table, legs dangling. "I heard what you said," she told me, "about choosing me over your career. It's the truth. I know, but I didn't. I know, but understand what it meant before. I thought you'd just failed, that you'd ended up here because you couldn't hack it in the real industry." She shook her head. "I was so wrong about everything." "You were young," I said. "You couldn't have known." "But I should have trusted you, should have believed you knew what you were doing." I walked over and stood beside her. "Claire, you're allowed to question your parents. You're allowed to make different choices. That's how people grow. The only mistake was assuming your way was the only valid way." She nodded slowly. "I'm trying to fix that. The new job helps. Working with people who actually care about quality. It's different." "Good different?" "Yes. Challenging, but in a way that feels worthwhile." We locked up together and walked to the corner where she'd parked. Before she got in her car, she turned back. "I'm proud of you, Dad. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of what you built, and I'm grateful you chose me." I watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into evening traffic. Then I walked back to the shop, climbed the stairs to the apartment, and sat in my chair by the window. The city moved below, strangers passing in the amber glow of streetlights. Most of them wore clothes that would fall apart within a year, seams straining under ordinary use. But some of them, a few, wore pieces that had been carefully made, garments that fit correctly and would last. I thought about legacy about what we leave behind, not just in professional terms, but in the smaller inheritances that pass between parents and children. Patience, standards, the willingness to choose meaning over visibility. Claire had needed to reject those values before she could claim them as her own. That was natural. All I'd done was wait, continuing to do the work I believed in, trusting she'd find her way back when she was ready. The coat hung on a rack near the door, dark wool catching the dim light. Tomorrow I'd wear it to my chess game with the pharmacist. He'd notice, because he noticed everything. He'd ask where I'd gotten it, and I'd tell him I'd made it myself decades ago, from a design that never saw production. And he'd nod, understanding without needing explanation why that mattered. Some things don't require an audience. They only require integrity and time. The rest sorts itself out, one careful stitch after another, until the pattern makes sense and the fit is true.